even though I may have had the desire to stay out and get clean, once I relapsed, it was the beginning of the end. It was like a ticking time bomb for me to just get arrested again. So if you added it all up from 19 to 32 years old, I probably had done over 10 years behind bars, whether it be in the county jail or prison. I struggled with addiction for 17 years. I had enough. By the time I was 33, I was suicidal. I was depressed. I felt hopeless. The last few times I did get out, I did want to change. I was getting so tired of just watching my life pass by me through those bars. So the last time, I like to say, I didn't get arrested, I got rescued. I got down on my knees in the jail cell and I said, God, I know I'm back here. I'm used to this. It's no biggie. I'm not worried about any of that. I'm worried about when I get out. How do I stay out? Father, give me some kind of sign, some kind of life preserver, because I'm drowning, and help me, because I don't want to do this no more.
For the first time on my podcast, I've felt the need to want to start with a prayer. And I start every day of my life with a prayer of just gratitude and appreciation for everything that I have. And I feel really just grateful and appreciative for this moment and compelled to pray. So let me start there, and then we'll get into your story and what you feel God has put you here to speak upon. So,
I love that, yeah.
Father God, come before you today, grateful men who have overcome many adversities in life and are blessed to still be here to share our stories, to help others, to inspire hope in others, and to do so many great works as I know you have planned for us. God, I thank you for bringing Joe here to bless us with his presence, his words, his faith, and his gifts for this podcast. I'm truly honored to have him here, and thank you. And may the things we say today impact the ears of those that need to hear it most.
Yes, Father.
Whatever that is, God, help us. And thank you. Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah.
So I have a question I want to ask you.
Okay.
What would you put on a billboard?
Ooh, wow. What would I put on a billboard? I think I would try to get like a phone number that's not my personal number.
Yeah.
And I would put a phone number up that would say something like, along with it, something like, if you or someone you know is struggling with addiction or struggling with, I don't want to mess this word up, the being a part of the recidivism rate.
Yeah, recidivism. Yeah.
Recidivism, thank you, yeah. Something that's geared towards that. Please call this number, and then I would love to try and network to help people that are dealing with something like that, or even people that have a family member that's maybe incarcerated and doesn't know what to do, and is lonely, just needs somebody to talk to, some guidance, how to navigate, being a supportive partner as somebody that's going through something like that, Yeah.
If I called you and I was the guy and I was like, Joe, man, I'm struggling with this addiction. I just got out of prison. Things were going okay. I fell back into it, struggling. I don't know what to do. What would you tell me?
You got to get a support group. And in that support group, you got to get a mentor, because accountability is everything, When I first got out, I had all this freedom and time on my hands. And without the proper support group or a mentor, I was left to my same stinking thinking, And even though the desire may have been there in my heart, habits were still deeply ingrained in my brain. And so it would be short-lived, my success, of being a productive member out here. And it would just be a matter of time before I went back to old friends, old ways, old circles, and it always ended up the same.
I completely agree. And I have somebody in my life right now who is that exact person, and The problem is that he feels like he can do it on his own, and he doesn't want to get that help that's provided for him. Why do you think that is?
You said a he.
Yeah.
He's men in general have a very tough time surrendering. I mean, call it a pride thing, call it whatever, just the way we're hardwired. But there is a reason why, if you take a look at most churches in America, women outnumber the men, right? 7 to 3 out of 10, right? And it's like, why? Why is that? Well, because women naturally look for someone to submit to, naturally. Most women. There are, of course, the exception of women that are strong, independent women, But in the church, you see that because the Bible's laid out that way, right? That the man is the head of the house. And, Adam was created first and all that. But, men surrendering, it's tough for us, and let alone surrendering to something that you're not fully sure of, or you don't trust yet. Maybe you have trust issues, and all these types of traumas come into play that really dictate you don't trust to surrender. You don't have the faith to surrender, to a program, to a higher power, to a mentor. You know what I mean? And so,
I say he to just respect him because I don't want to put his name out there,
right,
but I feel like he is like hundreds of thousands of people, right?
Definitely.
And I spoke to his grandmother, and I told her that sometimes the best thing we can do is lead by example and pray.
Yeah.
How important is that?
100%. So many people can experience the love of God by the things that you say and do for them, and never never have that stigma that sometimes the Bible has.
Yeah.
I've encountered a lot of people where I try to talk to them about God and the Bible, and they're opposed. But the same types of people, over a prolonged period of time of just loving on them, showing them that you care, being supportive and encouraging, that breaks down barriers, that breaks down walls, right? The Bible says that an offended person is harder to win over than a fortified city, right? And so, these offended, if they've been offended by the church, man, it's really tough, obviously you take a look at the news, you see so many stories of the church misappropriating funds, sexual misconduct, and so there's all types of people like that in the world that don't want to hear anything about the Bible, but just by your example and just by you loving on them, it could help them rethink a relationship with God.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It's that important,
Yeah, that's powerful. And I mean, you're a pastor now, and very like just sitting across from you. If I didn't know a little bit about you, I wouldn't think that you went through many struggles in life because you have your head together. And I get the same thing too, by the way, that people say that I can't believe you went through what you went through.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Tell us about your past. And how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, the same thing happens to me all the time, Carlos. I'll be at church, and the church will do a little card with my story, and people come up to me and be like, I can't believe that's you, and I always tell them, look at the single needle work. You don't get that out here on the streets. You get nice 7 needle work, know? And but so I grew up in a household where both of my parents were addicted, and they were, in all accounts, they were strung out. My dad couldn't even get out of bed until he hit the pipe. He couldn't eat, he couldn't go to work until he hit the pipe, and so he was that dependent on meth, to function. And it's interesting, I'm sorry, I get a little off topic, but when most people do meth, they're not hungry, they can't sleep. My dad was so far that he had to smoke meth to go to bed, smoke meth to eat, Like it was completely
Wow.
reversed by,
Yeah.
he'd been doing it for over 25 years,
Uh-huh.
And then that was my dad. And then my mom was addicted to crack, and meth. And both of them were really good people. We had a beautiful home in Costa Mesa, Orange County, really nice. But inside the home, it was like a trap house,
Mm.
tweaker projects everywhere, drugs on the kitchen table. So I grew up in this environment, and that was like a normal for me. I had to watch TV to
Mm.
to see what actual normal families were like. My mom would disappear. She'd get all tweaked out and disappear for 3, 4, sometimes 5 days at a time,
Mm.
and I'd be freaking out. And she got arrested a few times for possession with the intent to sell, and the judge warned her on the second time,
Mhm.
if I see you in this courtroom again, I'm going to deport you back to Panama. And my mom didn't take it serious, and he was true to his word. And so I was 9 years old when my mom got deported. A couple years after that, my dad had really checked out by this time and really progressed even worse, especially without my mom. And started drinking heavily. Then he started going in and out of jail and prison, DUIs and other stuff, and my grandma had to step in, because I had nobody, and by the time she got me, I was a pretty angry kid. Um, I remember her getting me like at around 10, but I think she told me it was earlier than that. And from then on, she had me, and started acting out in high school. Started gravitating towards the wrong type of friend, the misfit, the gang member,
Mm.
whoever had weed, and soon progressed to heavier stuff, from weed to coke, from coke to meth, from meth to heroin. By the time I was 17, I'd been to juvenile hall a couple times, a couple grand theft autos. And then by the time I was 19, I went to prison and got my first CDC number.
Mm.
I did 2 years, got out, and that was like the beginning of the end. Once I was on parole, it was over. I just couldn't stay out.
Mm.
I used to think for the longest time the secret to life is to stay out of prison and get high. I never found the secret to life.
Yeah.
There's just no way, because
Yeah.
once, and like I was telling you earlier, once, even though I may have had the desire to stay out and get clean, once I relapsed, it was the beginning of the end. It was like a ticking time bomb for me to just get arrested again. And so if you added it all up from 19 to 32 years old, I probably had done over 10 years behind bars, whether it be in the county jail or prison.
Yeah.
And, I struggled with addiction for 17 years.
Mm.
And I had enough. By the time I was 33, I was suicidal. I was depressed. I felt hopeless. Last few times I did get out, I did want to change. I was getting so tired of just watching my life pass by me through those bars. And so the last time, I like to say, I didn't get arrested, I got rescued.
Mm.
And
I love that.
yeah, and I got down on my knees in the jail cell, and I said, God, I know I'm back here. I'm used to this. It's no biggie. I'm not worried about any of that. I'm worried about when I get out. How do I stay out?
Mm.
Father, give me some kind of sign, some kind of life preserver, because I'm drowning, and help me, because I don't want to do this no more, And that same week, a chaplain came on the tier, and it was very rare. I was in a part of the county jail where we didn't get many visitors. We're all in single man cells. They call it high power in there,
Mm.
and just by chance, not by chance, but by that prayer,
Yeah.
the chaplain came on the tier, and I was like, wow, what are the odds, and it got me kind of starting to look up,
Yeah.
both figuratively and literally look up, and he came to my cell. I told him my story. He was deeply moved, and he's like, I'm going to help you. I feel like you can get a program. And I was already skeptical. I'm like, that ain't going to let me have a program. I've already failed like 5 of those. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, let me try. And sure enough, I got a new court date, and the judge took a hard look at me and said, I'm going to give you a program. And I knew it was God. I knew it. And they let me out 8 months early, and so that was in 2021. And I got out Thanksgiving Day. It was all messed up, because I was supposed to get out Wednesday, and the jail experienced a blackout that they hadn't experienced at such a level of like complete no power in over 60 years. And it was the day I was getting out. And I'm like, of course, And then
it wasn't meant yet.
And that's so it takes me to Thursday, which was Thanksgiving Day, and I get out and there's nowhere to go. Like, I was supposed to get picked up by a van. There was no van. And panic kind of set in, because I'm like, this is a gate pickup. And now I'm absconding, right? Because I'm not being transported properly. So I went straight to the program. I called the parole office. Of course, nobody answered, right? Because it's Thanksgiving. Went to the program, and they were like, oh, we're on COVID lockdown, man. We're not letting nobody come in, And so you fast forward, I kept trying every week. I kept coming back. Finally, I got in. My PO was amazed. I had already now started on the right foot with him,
Yeah.
And he was amazed. He's like, dang, dude, like you really, like most people just would have gave up, and but you really pushed hard. I was like, man, I'm telling you, I'm really trying. And got into the program, and that's it, man. The rest is history. I never looked back. I did struggle a little bit in the very beginning, the very first 6 months of the program. I relapsed a few times, but I know why. It's because I was working just a 12-step program, and there was a key component that was missing, and it was Jesus. I was just working steps. I was not doing anything spiritual, and so I was still trying to operate in my own strength. You know what I mean? And then after those 6 months go by, I got invited to a church called Fearless, LA, and went there. And the first time I went there, and I'm not like, one of those touchy-feely guys, like, I don't like, like at church, I'm not like dancing around or nothing. I'm usually the guy in the very back with his arms crossed, kind of barely tapping my toe to the beat and nodding my head, and that's it. But this particular service, I was standing up, and then somehow my arms went up in the air, and I just felt like this wave of just a weight being released from me. I started crying. I hadn't cried in years and years, and something felt unlocked inside of me from that worship service. And the word came after, and it just pierced me. And it was like, almost like it was written for me, And from that day forward, I've been clean and sober. That was 3 years ago,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man. I mean, praise be to God, of course.
Yeah.
But man, it's incredible that you were able to have that willpower to make the choices, the free will to, in the initial stages, to then God opening up to you, because God will receive you if you make the choice.
Yeah.
And it's so many similarities. It gave me chills when you said the chaplain came down into the unit, because that's like my story as well.
Yeah.
And what happened with me, and it just shows, like you even said it, is like on a rare occasion. It's the same thing, like in same situation. It was a rare occasion, but now looking back, you see that, okay, God provided the help.
Yeah.
Like you can't do it on our own. God's going to provide the help along the journey, but it's on us to make the decision, and you did. And so I commend you for that, man, to be where you're at and to be doing what you're doing now and giving back so much. And I want to go back a little bit. You said that your mom was deported. I want to ask you, like, what did that feel like? Your mom getting deported, and did you get to see her often? And did you reconnect with her down the line? And I say that because there's probably kids and parents out there experiencing that even right now, with a family member may have gotten deported. And so, like, how are you able to deal with that, and how did that feel?
Yeah, 15 years went by of silence between me and my mother. We were estranged, and um, yeah, your first question. Yeah, it felt like my heart got ripped out of my chest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a whole lot from that time,
Mm-hmm.
but I do remember that day. You know,
Yeah.
and I remember her telling me, "You be good, you be
Mm.
good, Joe."
Yeah.
As she's being carted away in a police car,
Yeah.
and it was to me, I was so angry at her telling me that. You're telling me to be good,
Mm.
and then here you're leaving, in a cop car. And I think that is why I struggled so much with authority, being rebellious, you know, and I honestly felt like my mother had chose drugs over me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But today I know better. I know that because I am a recovering addict, and so I know that she was sick, right,
Mm.
and that she didn't choose. She was just a sick person, just like I had made promises to family and
Mm.
friends that I couldn't keep, and because I was sick. And I thank God for allowing me to see that, so that the judgment is off her and I can forgive.
Mm.
But to answer your other question, I still haven't seen my mother. It's been 30 years. I'm 39.
Mm.
And but me and my beautiful fiance Sandra, we're working on our passports. We just barely both got our original birth certificates, which took a little bit to get from the hospitals. And the next step is to go to the post office and get our passports. And I'm believing that this year I'll be able to see my mom after 30 years. And it's going to be, I already know it's going to be very healing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been tough. I've tried to seek validation. I've tried to seek acceptance. I've tried to seek love, all through feeling like there's a hole in my chest because my mother's missing. But now I know, that through this journey, through recovery, through my commitment and my faith, that hole can be patched up.
Mm-hmm.
And that yeah, I mean, I can be productive and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for a long time in those 17 years of addiction, I was stuck. I couldn't get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Now though, like I just said, there's forgiveness, there, and
Yeah.
that has really contributed to me maintaining sobriety. Because the knee-jerk response would be to go get high whenever I felt anything,
Yeah.
that I didn't like. And but
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking with my mother on an app,
Mm-hmm.
and still haven't been able to see her face.
Wow.
Her technology is limited down there. I don't
Yeah.
even know what she's using, if it's a flip phone or a landline
Yeah.
but we do talk, maybe I'd say once a month now. She does constantly ask for my forgiveness, and I keep telling her it's all right, it's all good. We're gonna see each other soon, man. I know we are,
Yeah.
and she's clean and sober. And so
Wow.
she works for a very successful man down there that's
Yeah.
American and has a business down there, and so she has steady income. She's got her
Yeah.
own condo down there, and she always tells me it's in your name. It's in anything
Wow.
happens to me, that's yours. And
Yeah.
I could sense that she wants to give me back something, that all the time that was lost, that she feels obligated to give me something.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell her, I don't need nothing from you but your love. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the day that I get to see her again. So
It's amazing, man. It's incredible because it doesn't always end up like that, right? I mean,
No.
so many things happened in your life and probably in hers after she got deported that could be why you never see each other again, and you never have that closure, and you never see each other as two healed people.
Mm.
And you mentioned that you dropped to your knees and you asked God to help you, not just get out of prison, but to help you stay out of prison.
Yeah.
And most people that I know when I was in prison were just praying to get out. That's their main objective, get out.
Yeah.
Like, and they even say things like, I just need to get out and I'll figure it out. But for
Mhm.
you, it was like, you were thinking further ahead, like stay out.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like that's a whole other way of thinking. And I'm like, well, where did God be introduced to your life? Like, how did you first get introduced to God? And because, or did you ever, or did you just feel like a calling to pray to God, whoever that was, and then figure, it out then? But where did that come from? Because for me, it was when I was a kid. I went to Catholic school, and then after from 12 on, I lost touch with God. I got disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
But I always remembered that, like, that, okay, there's this, I've been introduced as a young kid to God, this faith, and I lost touch with that. But then when I decided to be open to that again, I was going back to my childhood, and it that was my introduction then. So for you, where was that moment?
I know God's got a sense of humor because it's insane how similar we are, and so I know that like He ordained for us to cross paths,
Absolutely.
But same, like I was a very young kid. My grandmother introduced me to God. Shout out to Grams, she's gonna be watching this
Awesome.
later. Yeah, love you, Graham. Just a saint of a woman. What she put up with my dad, and then with me, raising us both, and we were really tough kids, But she would make sure that we go to church. She made me memorize the Lord's Prayer. She was a Lutheran, and so very, a certain way, conservative, right? And she tried her best. She really did, and but I was just so traumatized and angry, But she raised me to believe in the Bible, to pray to God, to believe on the name Jesus Christ. She gave me the basics, and every time I went to prison, she would send me a Bible,
Wow.
And so, not just any Bible, like she'd send me a nice study Bible, and always tell me, I'm praying for you. I know that God one day is going to get you clean and sober. I know it, and she was right. Yeah, everybody else gave up except her, and but now she's the one that gets to say, I told you so. He made it, and so, but yeah.
Power of prayer, man. Right?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Never gave up hope on you, prayed.
Definitely.
And just that, it just shows like how much of an amazing person she is. And I mean, that's incredible. Is now like where you're at in life, I'm sure that you run into a lot of people who are troubled or,
Definitely
dealing with something, and they can relate to you and connect with you and come to you with their worries and problems, and you can help them. And what's some advice you would give to a young person who doesn't believe in God, but needs help and wants help?
And wants help. That's the key right there.
Wants it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the key, because you can't change or get better for anyone else. You got to want it, and yeah, you're absolutely correct. I do work with a lot of people. I work in Skid Row.
Yeah.
And so anybody that's familiar with Skid Row, that is the most condensed homeless population in Los Angeles, right? And so where I work at the Los Angeles Mission. I work very closely with the case managers, and we see a lot of tough cases, a lot of hard cases come in, court orders, and people that have done significant amounts of time and are kind of like dancing on that border of being institutionalized, and I give a lot of them the same advice. That's basically, I'm not special, and yet I made it out, so that should tell you that you can too, but there's certain things you have to do, right? And if you're not willing to do them, you probably haven't reached the rock bottom, You're still kind of having fun with it. I remember vividly my last trip, man, it was all bad.
Yeah.
I was seeing stuff, I was hearing stuff that wasn't there. And then I was worried that I was going to lose my mind, and it just wasn't fun. And I had reached the ultimate bottom, And so I tell them, yeah, if that's the case for you, there needs to be a resolve in your head that there is no alternative, that it's this or death. And with that same energy, you need to go into this, right? You need to keep that energy, and you need to have a vivid reminder of what the jail cell looks like, of what being hungry with no money on your books looks like, of like when you're making those phone calls to mom and she's not answering, of being in fear of your life when you go out to the yard because you know it's about to crack. You need to remember these things vividly and not romanticize what getting high is, because it lasts a couple hours, maybe a day if you're lucky, if it's good stuff, and then the music gets turned off, the party's over, and you're starting to trip out, and you're starting to wig out on things that aren't there and see things that aren't there and acting not like yourself, and then the cuffs, and then 40 hours in holding. Remember all of these things. I tell them, you need to remember all these things, because we have a habit as addicts to romanticize just the high. We don't take into consideration that it's going to wear off, and then what happens, and then it's like being desperate at 3:00 in the morning, maybe robbing somebody because you're that desperate and risking your freedom for, something that may cost $100 and you're risking 15 years of your life. And it's like, why, having these vivid mental pictures in your head should keep you in line, right? And it should keep you in sharp focus of wanting something better for yourself.
Yeah. How do you define institutionalized?
Somebody that is more comfortable living their life on the inside as opposed to getting out. And I knew I was dancing on that line because there were times where I didn't even want to get out. There are times where I set myself up in there to get more time because I felt that I wasn't ready to get out. And that is a scary thought, So I would define it as you are no longer able to function in society as a productive member, and that you are out of place and feel out of your skin and out of your element being free.
Yeah, so true. I was locked up with a guy who told the judge, he had life, and he told the judge he was tired of being free at his sentencing, and he got life in prison, and he's just like, was like, this is where I feel most comfortable, like in the streets, it's too hard to be free. It's, here it's simple.
Yeah.
I get up, go do this, do that. I know my routine. And
it's predictable.
It's predictable. Exactly. Yeah. And I never understood that. Just like when people in prison would be like, I'm going to go to the house. Remember that? Like you'd be inside, like,
you're at the yard and you're yard recall. Go back to the house.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the pad. Yeah. Like I remember hearing that, and people that I used to be cool with, you just start saying it. And I never wanted to say that. Like I always, like I would catch myself before I said I'm going back to the cell. And I, like, how big does that play? Like when you're in prison, right? How do you keep from allowing that environment to like keep you there, it's stuck in that mentality, or how, and then how do you get out and shake that? Because certain things in prison, it's like a different language almost. You have to do certain things, you have to be a certain way. Yeah. You have to get up. And I got up and rolled my mat up, and I was up and on point, and bar locks. Then I go to sleep. All these things, and then you get out and you go into the free world. Like, how do you make that transition? And then how do you keep from allowing the prison environment to get you to a state of being institutionalized?
Once again, I hate to sound like a broken record. But it's got to be it's your community, right? In there, it's all about impressing the big homies, right?
Yeah.
I need to do this so that the big homie looks at me this way and I get respected here, because so many people, right, get disrespected, and the dreaded L word, right? You don't ever want to be labeled a lame, but if that is what you've worked, because we're talking about prison time, so if that's what you've worked for years, and you literally put blood, sweat, and tears into getting a name for yourself in there, when you get out, it's all gone. That's really all gone, unless it's all connected to your hood somehow, right? But like for me, it was all gone. I'm from Orange County. We're not politicking that crazy out there, and so now what? And I feel like you have to roll up your sleeves, find a new community, and then try to impress the biggest homie, right? God, and live for him, and it takes a whole lot of, yet again, surrender, surrendering to your old self, to your old ways, to who you may have idolized yourself to be, right? Some guy that's yoked, right? With the big old brosha, right? And, but when it's interesting when your community changes, your identity begins to change. And a pastor once told me something that's really good. He said, Joe, you can't keep dipping a sponge in vinegar and expect to wring out water. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And humans are sponges, right?
Yeah.
We emulate, we look up to, we glean knowledge from, and we get our idiosyncrasies from, who we look up to, And so if you surround yourself around solid-headed mentors that are going somewhere, you're eventually going to be going somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. Another pastor told me you can't run with turkeys and then fly with the eagles. Right?
I love that.
Yeah. And so, surround yourself around eagles, surround yourself around dudes that are actually going somewhere, doing something, But you keep kicking it with the homies on the block that aren't doing nothing and committing crime, you're eventually going to commit a crime and go right back in. And so the mentality has to change, and having that support group and community is pivotal in that change.
Did you discharge that number?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. She drove me down to the parole office. Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, man. And I'd been on parole, I discharged my V number and got an AF number like within months. It was sad. I was sick.
I had a V number also.
Yeah. And so I finally got rid of the AF number. I had it forever. And that
is crazy. Because I remember in prison they were doing that. Like it went from it stopped, and then they started to add 2 letters.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and then it went back for some reason, like G, remember?
Yeah.
So it got to V, and then it went back to G, and it's like, wait, what? But yeah, then when they added 2, I was like, oh, this is getting out of hand.
So how did you congratulations, first of all, you're getting married.
Yeah, thank you.
An incredible person that
knows
everything about you and supports you, obviously. It's like, how did you 2 meet, and what is your just advice on having a successful relationship? I feel like it's a huge part of getting out of prison, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because there's 2 reasons why most people go back: drugs and bad relationships, like a domestic violence or domestic dispute of some sort.
Yeah.
And I've seen both happen to people I know, and so it's really it's really not even just for people getting out. Like regular people have trouble with having a partner and having a successful relationship. And here you are, you get out of prison, you have all this past, and I could see and feel the connection that you and your fiance have, and it's really powerful. So talk about that.
Yeah, so we met at church, which is a good place to meet somebody, right? And we were introduced to each other by the pastor officially, but we had seen each other, here and there, serving at the church. She served in the apparel, right? Because she's in fashion design, right? That's her career, and I would serve doing maintenance and little projects around the building, fixing stuff, and so we would kind of cross paths every now and then, and kept it cordial and stuff, but there was really no deep conversations until the pastor introduced us, and he told me he really felt that there was an interest there, and that I should talk to her, and I told him, dude, that's the last thing I want right now. I was at the end of finishing the Los Angeles Missions program. I was on food stamps. And so in my head, I'm like, take her out to some place that accepts hot food program, and come on, bro.
Subway or something.
Yeah, on my bus pass. I didn't even have a car. And so to me, that it was silly to even think about that. And, knowing her and, her caliber, she deserves something a little bit better than that, but she'll sit here and tell you she doesn't care. She would have, but she, and that's what I love about her, she saw me before I saw me. She wasn't concerned about where I was. She was concerned about where I'm going. And seeing the anointing on my life is why she was attracted to me, And so we met through the pastor, and then I started talking to her more. And then as I started to I completed the program, I started doing more at my church and started seeing her more. And one day, and then I got hired by the church. And so I had some money in my pocket. And one day, God just put it in my heart. You should ask her out, you know? And it was so unprofessional. It was so like unromantic. It was just very, because I didn't wake up expecting that. Yeah. It was literally like right before I was getting to church, I had the thought, oh, Sandra's going to be there. And then God gave me the thought, you should ask her out, you know? Wow. And then I was at the better mindset I was in a better headspace where I was like, yeah, that would be nice. I think that would work good, you know, if it could work out, you know? And so I saw her, she was in there. I was so happy too. I think I told her, I was like, oh, I was hoping that you'd be here today, you know? Yeah. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, you know, it's good to see you, you know? Yeah. And then I played around with it in my head, and I'm like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to ask her? I'm just going to be casual, you know? I don't want to scare her off, you know? And so I was like, hey, we should get dinner after this and hang out. And she was like, okay, you know? And we talked. We went to Denny's and we talked, you know, because Denny's is open all night, you know? Yeah. Had a really, really good conversation. Found out we both have a lot of similar interests. You know, for me, music is key. Like, I love punk and emo and screamo, and she's into all that. Yeah. And so for me, that was a big deal for me. You know, we were able to connect on that. But most importantly, our values aligned with God, right? And what is expected of a mature Christian, how he should walk, how he or she should walk. And so it was great first date. Really talked a lot. She's very, very easy to talk to, very good listener. Started playing it by ear from there. And she had to educate me on this, you know, because I did a lot of prison time, so I'm a little not. But one day I'm just like, yeah, you're my girl, you know. And she's like, you gonna ask me, or you're just telling me? Tell me, yeah. And so, and then some girls at the church were telling me, nah, bro, that's not how you do it. Yeah. You go get some flowers, you get a card or something, and you take her out, and then you ask her properly. And so
that's incredible.
That was in October of 2023. And now we're getting married in August. And it's just, you know, it's epic. She's been with me for some very, very strong victories in the last couple of years. Parole, right? Discharging parole. After that, I got to go see my grandma. I hadn't seen my grandma in 7 years. Wow. You know, and we took a plane out to Florida where she lives, and then I asked her to marry me out there, you know, and so just like, because my grandma had to be a part of it. She had to see the full circle moment, right? Yeah. And praise God for, you know, he who finds a wife finds a good thing, right? And obtains favor from the Lord. And I know for a fact that I have a lot of blessings in my life, but the biggest blessing is Sandra, you know.
That's incredible, man. Yeah. It's like God just, you know, once you just surrendered, God just like has been blessing you. And it's just the beginning.
Left and right. Yeah.
And it's such a powerful like example of that, like you can be in a really bad place and then, you know, go through the struggles of like the transformation process. Cause I know it wasn't really easy, you know, kicking the addictions and all these, even the limiting beliefs and all these different things that come with the past life to now have like all these fantastic things happening. It's like, that's such a powerful example. And I'm like, just very grateful to know you, man, because it's like, I feel that way and I know you feel it. Like we both feel that Definitely. Way, you know, like just from where we were to where we're at now. And you don't run into many people who can understand that. They've been through such a bad experience, but then can look at life now. It's like just so beautiful. Everything. Right. Yeah. It looks better. Right. Yeah. Everything's better. Right. Yeah. And, I could sense that off you. It's like you have that energy. And I think that's, like you said, what kind of brought us together and connected us.
Yeah.
So talk about like the work you're doing now and where you want to go. Like what is your, you know, your dreams, your goals for the future. Before we go.
Yeah. You know, like I was saying earlier, I truly believe it was God ordained that we met. Because like a lot of the things that you're doing is what I would like to do, you know, one of my biggest dreams is to be able to go back into the prison and preach the word on the yard, and then, so that's a big goal for me. Another big goal would, I completed Bible college. And so, I would really love to be a recovery pastor or something like that, with my church. And so working with them and, continuing to show faithful service and consistency for them, so that I could be trusted with such a heavy title at our church. And like to work with the youth more. I love doing that one that we just did, Youth Champions.
Yeah, we did Youth Champions. Yeah.
Amazing, just really, really helping people to understand that there is hope, either for themselves or for their loved ones that they know of, that have similar stories like us, that there's hope, and that it can happen, and that it's a little selfish, but it feels so good to give back. It really does. Something about it is freeing. It's like, every time I tell my testimony, every time I talk about the victories, it's like venom being released from my system, And so, I love doing this stuff. It's extremely rewarding and fulfilling. I just want to go deeper, wherever God takes me, whatever he has for me, whatever doors he opens, I'm down. Let's do it. I'm all in, just like I was all in when I was in the streets, I was all in, and so having that same energy with God now and with this kind of lifestyle, and me and my fiance we're on a health journey. I say every now and then we relapse off of a McDonald's burger or something, but we are trying.
Okay.
We're really trying hard, and getting in shape. And she's got some really big surgeries coming up, that's gonna just transform her inside and out, and just getting ready for that, being supportive as her future husband for that, and simplifying life. You start to get caught up, blessings come in and then you want more and then you want more and it's not enough. And then you're trying to keep up with the Joneses and it's like, no, you know what? Just keep it. We got everything we need. We're super blessed. Let's just maintain a simple lifestyle and so, talking about that with her, and thankfully she's in agreement with that. She's got an extremely good head on her shoulders. So she can see, what's wise and what's not. And although we do like nice things, there's really no need to go too extravagant and, save money for vacations and memories and stuff like that, but
Yeah. Well, I certainly could help you with some of those dreams. Definitely, nice. And just really grateful, to know you, honestly. Like, I think the most valuable thing that God is giving me is my relationships with people. And
definitely.
And everything else, like everything, the money and all the stuff and all that, it comes, in time. But then it's like, it never is the same as, like you said, giving back. Right. It doesn't fulfill that.
Right.
And so I know that one of the things that I like to do is help people, and especially people that I know will continue to help others. So, and I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for your presence, and
likewise, brother.
And really appreciate you for being on this podcast today. I mean, this How to Battle was designed for a guest like you. And so you've definitely honored us with your presence. So thank you, brother, and God bless you.
Thank you, bro. Likewise. Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.